It's Black Friday, the plugin deals are insane, and every producer is filling up their cart thinking that this year's purchases will finally take their music to the next level. But here's the harsh truth. You probably don't need any of it. If your mixes aren't already where you want them to be, buying another plugin isn't going to really fix that. But skills will. So today, John and I, we want to break down why so many producers fall into the Black Friday trap and where you should really be investing your time and money if you want better results. So like I said, I'm joined on the podcast again today by Mr. Jon Pegnato. Welcome, welcome.
Awesome to be back.
You guys might know him already from projects of his like LA Riots, Cobra Effect, Hot Mouth. He's released on Atlantic, Capitol, Interscope, Fool's Gold, Dirty Bird, Spinnin', performed worldwide at huge festivals like EDC, Coachella, Burning Man. And he's also a highly in-demand ghostwriter and a mentor for our school and the creator of our courses Melodic Secrets and 60-Minute Songs. Great to have you back on the show, man.
Great to be back, as usual.
Yeah, and we're talking Black Friday today. We're talking plugins. I know that the temptation is real.
Yes.
You know, and there's some there's definitely deals. But can you take me back to the last time that you got sucked into the Black Friday deals? Do you remember what you bought and what you were hoping it would fix in your music, and did it actually fix it?
Well, there were several. I mean, I can give one example. I think it was the Lexicon Reverb bundle. It was a lot too. It was like $500. And I got it because the person that I was working with is like, oh, you need this. We need this. We need this. Bought it. We used it on one song. And then we ended up, I was in Logic at the time, but we ended up just using the Logic Reverb by the end of it. We didn't end up.
It's really good.
It was great.
Space Designer.
Yeah, Space Designer.
Awesome.
It was great. And a lot of other, and every year I do get hit up by, my circle of friends, and they're all like, hey, and with my circle of friends in different group chats, everyone's pitching the plugin that they maybe want to go in on with a couple people. And I'm always, years ago, I'd be like, okay, that looks like that could spark some inspiration, or that could I think that's what I was always looking for. I was always just looking for like a spark of something that was just going to make what I'm doing better. But if I think back to the high majority of those purchases, they're collecting dust on my hard drive. Anytime I have bought a plugin that happened to be on Black Friday, it just happened to be on Black Friday because it was something that I contextually needed, whether it was for like a session that I was working with somebody else or this and that. But it wasn't like, I'd be like, oh, I'd go to buy something like, oh, great, it's on sale, right? And I'd be stoked but it wasn't like I purposely like timed it, if that makes sense. Yeah. Just because anytime I did do that, I'm just buying stuff out of FOMO,
Yeah. I think that's one of the main reasons we do this, and I'm guilty of it. I think we all are. I've learned my lesson over the decades. But yeah, FOMO is a huge one. I think hope of something magical coming out of it. Obviously, there's the marketing. Understandably, these are businesses; they need to run a business.
And they look cool too.
Yeah, they do look cool, they're the most dangerous ones, the one that look the coolest. But in a way, sometimes it's subconsciously we're avoiding some skill development as well too. We're just kind of hoping this is going to be the magic bullet. And
yes,
it's easy to be pulled into it because you'll see high-name producers, high-profile ones and things saying, oh, this is amazing, you need this. You have to have this. Right. This is the best compressor out of all the compressors, or this is going to change everything.
Right.
But I totally fell for that stuff when I was starting out.
Yeah. And the other aspect too, and I'm not fully against buying a third-party plugin. I've done it and I use them. But what you want to make sure that you are cognizant of is the computer is not supposed to make the idea. You're supposed to make the idea.
Yeah.
And if you overly rely on the tools to sort of create the coolness of your idea, then you're always just sort of you're always going to be at the behest of whatever tools you think that you have. So you're like, oh, I can't make that because my tools aren't cool. Where you take somebody that is more focused on skill, you can give them any tool. You can give them any DAW, you can give them any plugin, any EQ, and they're going to make something louder, cleaner, cooler, and more music focused versus, it's like the age old, it's like muddying the waters to make it seem more deep in a way. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're trying to overly be complicated about it and just to avoid the actual music,
Yeah, you look for the new shiny thing rather than learning the thing that's right in front of your face, right?
Yeah. And and after, you know, my own issues over the last several decades, but then also, being a mentor for the last 10 plus years now, or yeah, about 10 years, everyone that first comes to me always assumes that their problem is their mixdown, or that, it's their mastering, or something that is super technical. That's the thing that's going to make their thing shine. And, I always have like my passive jerk, I'll say asshole, sort of remark to people that say, hey, can you help me master this? And I always say, shouldn't we be making this quieter? Do we really want this idea louder? And I just get a chuckle out of that. And it's like, if we're going to make this louder, shouldn't we make what we're making louder, like really cool?
Yeah, you got to have something to mix. Like people talk about wanting to have a better mix down and stuff and have better sonics. It depends on what you start with. You got to have good music there to begin with. We can't skip. All the stages are important. You just can't skip those earlier ones.
Yeah, and then also, I have some plugins that I do use, right? And are like Valhalla, right? And I have Valhalla delay. But every now and again, actually not every now and again, a lot of the times I'll pull up Valhalla, I'll start playing with the delay, and it's just not sounding the way I want it to sound for a certain thing, or I'm just moving fast. And I have, because when I write delay, when I Command F and I hit delay, I see Valhalla delay and I see Ableton delay. And every now and again, half the time, I just click delay, and I use the delay or echo that's in Ableton.
I was just gonna say, do you use the echo one much? The echo one's amazing.
Oh yeah, no, I use them both, to be honest with you. And I've had some pretty big records where it's, like the delays and space and everything in there is on amazing. Some of the most amazing that I've done, and it's just stock. And
yeah,
another thing to think about too when we talk about like delays or reverbs or any sort of effect. I'm not against effects because I also use Soundtoys stuff. Is anytime you get a new plugin, be wary of two things. They're going to increase the volume. So anytime you put it on there, the volume is going to go up on it. So immediately you're going to think it's better because louder is better, apparently. And the other thing is it's going to have added effects and added noise that a lot of times in a vacuum sounds really cool and really interesting and can add character. And there could be something good to that. But a lot of times what it's doing is it's making louder and it's making it sort of busy. So immediately your ears go, this is cool. And then you start putting it in and you go, why is everything just getting lower in my mix? Why is everything getting so muddy? And again, you have to just be careful. Certain plugins like a delay or even Valhalla, unless you're super advanced, you may put it on your sound and wonder why there's weird pitch things going on or why there's weird filter thing and like why it's moving. Like it might confuse it. There's a whole other, all these extra parameters that again are advanced if you want them. But a lot of times when I'm doing some pretty big records, I just want it. I turn a lot of that off. And when I do have it on, it's very more precise,
Yeah, just dialing in what you need. I know what you mean, right? Like so many people, so many students I work with, we going through their session and I'll ask them, why do you dial in this delay setting here or something? Oh, it's just one of the presets. It was called Amazing Vocal or something, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's right for your vocal in your song. And often I'll see people even doing this for EQ and compression too. They're pulling up presets for EQ and compression. It's like, the compressor has no idea what your kick drum sounds like. Neither does the EQ. So it's not going to be able to give you the right setting.
Right.
All this stuff can fool you a lot, just like you say, with the volume difference. And a lot of the third-party plugins, especially when they're demoing them on, not even just them, but third-party, just other people could be demoing the plugins online. You're watching them on YouTube. And someone's like turning it on. Oh, look, it's amazing. It's so much better, right? They're often not volume matching them. And when they turn it on, it's a bit louder. So we all go, ooh, yeah. That's just how our brains work. We all think it's a little bit better. And it's really important to not get fooled by that because so often they're actually doing nothing. They're just a little bit louder or they're so subtle. And when you're doing a plugin shootout and comparing compressors and EQs and things, same thing, super important. I've done loads of that. And that's why I basically pretty much use Ableton plugins these days.
Yeah.
They're really good. I'd say back in the day when they first started, I had Ableton number one back in
Oh, wow.
year 2000.
Wow.
And Reason number one before that too, and they weren't as good. They weren't as good back then. No way, sure. And that's when I probably spent a bunch of money on third-party plugins because you kind of had to a little bit more back then. But over the years, I'm just been so blown away about how good they've gotten now, and there's so many amazing ones in there. And I'm often finding when I'm working with a student and I'm pulling up some plugins and I'll be doing it all in Ableton. They're like, how does it sound so good? You know, I'm like, and they go, what's that plugin? And I go, oh, it's called Raw. You haven't used Raw?
Yeah.
No, because they're so obsessed with all the third-party plugins they've been told to buy, they don't even actually know what they have in Ableton.
That's a good like multi-band saturator, which is really, and super, I mean, you can get really advanced with it as well. I think where I've noticed, and I even had this issue a while back, and I had noticed it with a lot of students, is when you kind of, it's like you only know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. And with your skills, a lot of times they're like questioning, we're like, well, I don't know what it is I'm supposed to do to make this sound better. So of course I'm going to reach for these things thinking that that's going to be the thing.
Well, yeah. And because they're held in higher regard. These are the pro things.
Yeah, these are the pro things. But really sometimes the most simplest answer is the answer. And one thing I would say everyone should do is get a hold, and you can find these online, get a hold of professional stems. Some other producer that you like, maybe they did a remix competition, they're available. You can find them. And just listen to a song that you like and listen to the stems. Whatever you can do, scour the internet, find any song and listen to the stems. And then listen to your stems. Just solo your track, maybe put them in groups and just listen how either dry or clicky or weird some of your sounds are. And a lot of times when I'm working with a student, they're like, oh, they're trying to, again, add something on the master or add something on a group. I'm like, well, let's just solo this little clap fill you have. And they do it, and it might be a clap sample that has like a reverb built into it, but they've cut it so it's like, you can kind of hear it sounds all choppy. When you listen to it in a vacuum, it sounds all choppy and crappy. I'm like, if you heard that in a stems folder, wouldn't you like question that? Like, what? Like, it doesn't sound finished. They're like, no. I'm like, well, let's finish it. Let's smooth that out a little bit. Let's add a little bit of a reverb on there. We can rebound. You can do all these things. It's like, now listen to it, just this one thing by itself, right? And now listen to it in the context of the song. And all of a sudden you're adding reverb or adding delay or adding an effect or doing something to it contextually versus just being like, I'm just trying to get it to sound good, because getting it to sound good, you don't even know what that means. And it's always start just listening.
It's like throwing stuff at the wall, trying to see what's going to stick. I see people doing this too. I don't want to go off your train of thought, but I just want to throw in, I so often see students when we're going through their session and they'll say, I'll see this big line of plugins, like 6 or 7 plugins, maybe sometimes 10. 1 or 2 of them might be turned off. I'm like, what was the thought process here? I was like, well, I tried that and I tried that and that didn't work. And I tried this and tried this. It's like, okay, it shouldn't be that way.
Right.
When you're taught the right things, you know exactly what you're hearing and what's the tool to fix it, to adjust it or enhance it or shape it. There's no more of this throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks.
Right. And then, the other aspect too, you don't want to stifle creativity. And I don't think that's what you're saying. And that's definitely not what I'm saying. Like, I think it is good to throw things at the wall when you're being creative. However, you still want to do that in the right way. You don't want to, I would say you don't want to weed whack really hard in the wrong direction and just get even further from the road. There's different places and ways you can explore, but you have to kind of know when you're if you EQ a portion out of a thing and then re-add it back in and then take it out. I've seen strings where they've added and re-added the same frequency like 3 or 4 times.
I've seen this too.
And it's like, okay. And then I asked him, I said, okay, well, 2 things, right? It's like, well, what are you trying to get it to sound like? It's like, well,
that's the important thing.
They're like,
you gotta clarify.
Like, Claire, what is it you're trying to get to, right? Because maybe it's a skill. They go, well, for one, I want it to fit in the track. I'll go, okay. And it goes, and I want it to sound like this. I'm like, okay, well, this isn't even the same source sound. This is a completely different sound. So why don't we just try to find that specific tom drum or that specific sound first? And it's like, then we do that. It's like, okay, now we wanted to get it to fit. It's like, okay, well, now that it's filling this space, does this other thing in the track need to be there? So now that is it, and then we take that out. I'm like, so now here we are. We've done two things. There's no plugins on it. It fits and it sounds closer to what you wanted without all of these crazy.
This is so true. I see this happen so often as well. And it's just like you were saying before, this is the exact situation of when you don't know what you don't know. When you're sitting there working on the project and you're like, I'm just going to try all these things. I know something's not quite right. I want it to sound like my favorite track that I'm comparing it to. Trying out all these plugins, nothing's getting me there. But like you say, it was a totally different sound. It was the wrong instrument or sample or whatever.
Yeah. And the other thing too, and I understand this coming from their perspective as I've been in this, it's easier to just throw things on there that make it sound different every time you do it, because it makes you feel like you're moving the needle one way or the other, where
like you're doing stuff.
Yeah, you're doing stuff, and it's like frustrating when you're like, well, I don't know what that is. And it's okay, but that's, to me, that's when I go, well, that's when you ask the question. That's when you ask the universe, you ask a mentor, you ask around versus it. But like sometimes that's harder for the mentality of like, well, I don't feel like that's going to make it sound the way it's supposed to sound. And where if I put this EQ on that I just bought or this other thing, it sounds different, like quicker, right? And that's why it's like the age old, it's like anyone can start a song. It's because anyone could just open a session and just start putting stuff in because it instantly does something. And you can even spend 2 days tweaking on it. Like, look how hard I'm working.
Yeah, that's not how you measure it though.
Right, exactly.
It's the end result in how much time.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's a better measurement. But yeah, I sometimes see people get a little, they might have a little bit of luck by throwing some stuff at the wall, right? Not to the point where they want it to be sorted, but they get a little bit in the direction, right? And they'll be looking at their session, but there'll be like 15 plugins. And I'm like, how long did you work on that? And they're like, oh, it was like 3 hours last night or something, just on this one sound. Like, let me show you something. Let's duplicate this. Let's take all those plugins off on this duplicate, and I'll show you a different way of doing it. And it'll probably just be like just an EQ, or maybe an EQ and a compressor or something. And they're like, oh, that's what I was going for. I'm like, that's when you know the right techniques, that's all you need.
Yeah.
And again, just stock plugins.
Yeah.
Well, that's the value of knowing it.
I'm going to tell you this one that I think you'll appreciate, because I always had this problem too, is I've had students show me a song, like 2 different songs, and I listen to them both and I go, okay, this one sounds like it took you a month to finish, and this one sounds like it took you a couple hours. And the couple hour one obviously is better. And they go, how did you know that I spent a month on that one and only a couple hours on this one? And I said, because the one that I could tell you took a month on had a lot of unnecessary details in places they shouldn't be.
Distractions.
All these distractions, all these little things. And it's like you got to think of it like a crackhead that's like, cleaning the crack crevice in between 2 stones or something for just like, it's like, okay, but that's negligible. You know what I mean?
Way too zoomed in.
And I used to have that problem. I have tracks, going back, 10, 15 years ago, I listened to them like, man, the time I spent on the detail on this when I literally should have just worked harder just on the bass patch for like an extra hour. And this would have solved.
Write a better hook. Choose a better kick drum.
Choose a better kick drum. Write a better hook. All the things that I did, it's like I chose everything I could to distract myself other than the things I was actually supposed to do. So
yeah, I was the same.
It's because I had a song that I still laugh about this one, and maybe I've told you this. I had a song where there is 4 seconds in the intro that I spent a week on because I just wanted it to. I wanted it to be like producer porn. I wanted it to be so cool, and luckily the track is actually pretty cool. But that's that luck you're talking about. It's like, but I was lucky that happened because a lot of times I put in, and it's funny too, with labels. I remember when I would get no's from labels back in the day, they would always say, this is the production on this is really cool, but it just doesn't seem like it's for us or it's not going to work. And, fast forward to now, it's like, I understand it's what they were saying. It was like overproduced.
Yeah, yeah. All those little details that us as producers think, wow, that's so cool. And I mean, in a way, it is.
Yeah.
We're geeking out on it, doing some sound design thing or some special technique or something that took ages. So, wow, yeah, that's cool. But it doesn't, only we usually get it. The general public doesn't. And labels are also trying to appeal to the general public. Even an underground label is appealing to the general public in some sense. They're not all producers, well, maybe some small labels, but it still has to be good music at face value. Even like if you knew nothing about music production, you should still be able to listen to it and be like, that's really cool.
Right, exactly. It should be accessible to like the lay ear. It shouldn't be, you have to be 90+%, 99%, if you're lucky. People of listening to your music don't even know what Ableton is. And that's kind of how you want it.
Yeah.
They don't, and that's the other thing too, if you've labored yourself on a song for weeks and weeks and weeks, just remember somebody's going to listen to it for 2 seconds and give you the thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah.
And that's an even bigger sort of thing of like, why, stressing out about getting some new thing that's going to like make it sound a certain way,
Speaking of which, and speaking of the time we put into songs as well, we were talking about this briefly before we started, but isn't it crazy the amount of time we can end up chewing up when we get a new piece of software or hardware or something? Because like you've got to dedicate that time to make the most of it, but often it can really, I know for me, it's definitely pulled me off my finishing songs or writing and just trying to learn this new thing.
Sure. No, 100%. And, my argument, obviously, and you and I discussed this before, but it's like my argument against it is you do want to keep the inspiration alive. And there are some really,
oh, that's okay.
There are some really good tools out there. And if, maybe for yourself that having some sort of a checklist of like, do I really need this? Like if you're changing your style into like, well, I'm just trying to do sequencing. I want to get like a 303. I want to change how I'm writing music. And you're literally just you're sort of targeting into like a new way, you want to get analog. And it's like, okay, but maybe that would make sense to sort of get that gear. And then you got to like sort of commit to that sort of thing. But 9 times out of 10, anytime I've ever gotten like a new piece of hardware, it's inspiring for a little bit, but I always end up slamming right back into the box. But it's also, the other thing I will say, it's one of those things you kind of have to make those mistakes yourself. And you never know, you might end up finding a piece of gear that, works for you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I agree. We do. I think we've definitely figured it out by making the mistakes.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what we're here to help everyone else avoid.
Yeah.
If possible, if they're open to it.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Well,
please listen to our mistakes so that you don't make them too.
Right. And again, there's a lot of different philosophies on this. I mean, I remember Steve Duda told me when it came to buying a synth, and this is also 15 years ago, and he was like, if you buy a synth and you make one song from it, it was worth it. and that was like my mantra forever. And I would buy synths. I'm like, well, if I make one song with it, it was worth it.
Depends how much did the synth cost,
yes,
and how much do you make from the song,
right? Exactly.
Really, and also or how much happiness at least, or
right,
something like that.
And
but I agree with that to a certain extent. Yeah, I was gonna say before, like with my thing about saying being aware of how much time new gear will suck out of you. Yeah, if it's causing you to write more songs, then it's worth it. That's a good investment. If you buy it, often this usually comes from things that generate sounds, usually things that are like synthesizers or sequencers, more so than mixing tools. They're going to spawn new ideas and create new things. That I have to agree. That's worth it for sure too. But yeah, just be careful if you're buying something and you're finding it's chewing up a lot of your time and you're not getting as much stuff done, nothing's drastically sounding better, it's probably not the right thing.
Right.
Take advantage of that warranty and return it. But also ask yourself, like you're sort of touching on there, I think it's really important to have like a bit of a checklist of how to decide if you should buy the thing or not, the plugin, the hardware, the whatever. And I think a way I approach it these days and what I'd recommend for people too is the first thing I would do is ask myself, can I emulate this with what I've already got? I'd go and take a look at my plugins or hardware if you have some, whatever. But I think everything in Ableton is enough. And I'd go and try and emulate it there. And almost every time I can. And it sounds just as good. Or I find some slightly different variation on it where I'm like, wow, that's my own unique take on it now. And it's going to be, I'll have people comment and say, how'd you do this thing? Did you have that new synth? They go, no, I made my own version of it. And it has its own flavor to it. So, I mean, so many things spawned new sounds by being used the wrong way. Like you say, a 303 was not designed to make acid house.
Right.
It was designed to be like a backing track for singers and stuff, and band, to be a bass machine. But then people, that was all they could afford because it was cheap, secondhand, and they made amazing new styles out of it. Turntables weren't designed for scratching.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the 303 was a
people did
flop when it came out too, I believe.
Yeah, it failed massively. So was the 808, and so was the 909.
Yeah.
And people bought them in secondhand stores, and that started house and techno and hip hop as well too.
Yeah.
So don't discount the unpopular gear.
Yeah. I also, another two things we'll touch on as well. Because again, I do use third-party plugins personally, but it is like a handful. It used to be I would just use nothing but third party, and it was like, constantly fighting. And it's like now I have like a handful that I use. Some of the pop stuff or like vocal stuff, it's like kind of like a requirement, especially when I'm like working with other artists and stuff. But, I was fortunate enough years ago to get the, like all of the UAD plugins, and all of them, and which is a blessing. And, at first I was using them all the time, and there was a lot of really good stuff. And then I started to realize I started similar to what you're talking about. I started like replacing everything I would use. Like I would use some really fancy compressor EQ or this and that. And again, I'm not saying that they're bad. They're fantastic. But then I started to realize, well, one, I couldn't always travel with my Apollo, and I'd be on the road, and
DSP.
And I was like, shit, I have to, and my DSP is exactly. And I would be like, I need these plugins. And I would use something else, and then I would get back in the studio. I'm like, I hear a little bit of a difference, but like, it's not really that much. And I slowly phased out, I would say 90% of the plugins that I used with UAD. Now I use like UAD X just because, again, I work with other people on some pop stuff. It is still
for compatibility.
Yeah, for compatibility. And it's like, even then there's a couple things that I use that I'm like, it's like kind of like, it's there's like a couple little, fun little like trick plugins that I have that it's just like that. Here's another, I'll say this. It's like, I do have a couple things that add like an extra 2%, but I will say it took me however many years to figure out what that was. And you don't want to focus on what that extra 2% you're trying to add is if you haven't figured out the other 98.
Oh, that's the quote of the episode.
Right?
It's so true. And the marketing from these companies, like I said, they're businesses. They should be allowed to push their stuff as much as they want, but it will tell you that 2% is the most important thing. And I fell for it when I was starting out. You'd see your favorite mix engineer comparing compressors and like, magical way this one sounds, and like, yeah, they do sound it maybe a tiny bit better, but like you say, it's like 2% compared to like the glue compressor in Ableton is like very nicely modeled off an SSL bus compressor, and it sounds amazing. Yeah, sure, they're a little bit clean. If you want it a bit dirtier, use a bit of drive, use a bit of raw or something, man. There's ways to do this stuff quite easily. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And I find in my situation, because I'm working with so many students and stuff, and there's so many different sets of plugins going back and forth, that it's just so convenient to work in the stock ones. So I'd often do that, and I'd start doing shootouts of them against all my third-party ones as well too, but properly done, volume matched, and measuring everything with analyzers and all sorts of stuff, and listening in treated room, and comparing. And I'm like, you know what? These stock ones are really good now. And more I started to realize and do it. And I'd see even some of the most famous EQs out there would null with the EQ8. Like they do exactly the same thing, same sound quality and everything. And And you just don't know that when you're starting out. When you're starting out, you see everybody talking about these third-party ones. You're like, it must be good then. Everyone says it's the thing, you know? And I wouldn't have had the confidence to say what I'm saying right now back when I was starting. It's only because my ears have developed and grown and learned so much that I can confidently say, you don't need it.
If there's one thing that I wish the EQ8 did have, though, was auto gain feature. That is.
Oh, okay. There's a way to do that.
Oh, is there?
Yeah. So
here we go.
I mean, you can just balance it. You can just change the volume yourself.
No, I don't want to do that.
if you want it auto, there is a Max for Live plugin called Volume Buddy. It's like $10, and you can stick it after anything in your plugin rack, and it will look at the volume coming into your channel. It'll look at the volume after whatever plugins, and it will match it.
Volume Buddy.
And you can do it in real time.
Is there a Black Friday sale on that $10 plugin?
Probably. No endorsement
Volume
here.
Buddy?
I just really like the plugin. Yeah, Volume Buddy, and it's really handy for things like overdrive, because often with overdrive you've got to turn up the input, but you also got to turn down the output. So you're doing two things at once.
Yeah.
You can do that, but if you want to be a little lazy or just get a quick sonic experience to dial in a setting, it can be handy.
Yeah.
There's a third-party one that one of our Pro Sound students picked out as well too, that he said he likes as well. I can't remember the name of it. I want to say it's called like some AMD or something. Maybe he can leave a comment down below, Seb, from Frequency Upgrade. He found one that he liked a little bit better, but I think, Volume Buddy's good enough, and it's like $10.
Yeah. That's one thing I do like about that filter. But it's also, another thing too, when you're, when you get into different stuff, like, I do multiple genres. So a lot of times, like with like pop or even like rock stuff or different types of dance and stuff, do different call for different things. And for me, being a ghostwriter, for me particularly, I sometimes purposely will try to get something just so that it'll sound slightly different from something else I made, so it doesn't sound the same. So sometimes it is a trick for me to be like, oh, maybe I'll use this EQ in this way on this one and this one on this one. But the majority of people aren't doing what I do. They're making the music. So and I think going back to the being sold on that 2% from plugin companies, if something is still burning that hole, like that desire to get that thing, try to see how far you can close the gap before you get it, right? Yeah. And it's like, okay, if I'm going to get that, let me just see how good I can get my sample selection, how good I can get it sounding before I add that thing in. And there was a plugin for me. I'll give you an example of this. There's a plugin for me that I wanted and I was going to get. It's like this tape exciter, and it's like for vocals. And it's a really cool way to add it. And I go, okay, before I get this, let me just see. And I like heard it like in a bunch of podcasts and they were talking about it. I watched some thing on it. I'm like, oh, this thing is like the sauce. And one plugin is like one thing I watched. So like, if there's one plugin I recommend you get, it's this. It was like, it's like type A.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And I was like, let me just see how good I can get this sounding. And I did, this match EQ to this other pop vocal just to get it as close as I could. And then I go, okay, I got to sound good. I bought the plugin. And when I bought the plugin, it actually made it sound tinny and shitty. I was like, okay. So I can't use it. It's like adding all this like sibilants to the vocal. It sounds much, but I had it just fine before. Yeah. And I thought, but I did sort of do my own acid test. I'm like, let me just see how good I can get this before I spend. It was only like $30. But I was, let me just see how good I can get this. And then it did take a little extra time that step. But then going forward, I kind of changed something up in my process. And it's like, I rarely need that, that excitement in my vocals because I've already did something else that got it there beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. You got to do that experimentation. I think that should be on the checklist. Push your current gear to the limits first. I think importantly too, also just know why in general. What are you hoping to achieve with it? Just speaking as someone who's spent thousands of dollars on plugins that I don't use. I have so many on my computer that I never use. I have so many I haven't even installed on my latest computer because I just don't use them. I have licenses sitting somewhere. It's just a joke. So yeah, ask yourself, like, what am I actually trying to achieve with this? And make sure you've tested it with the stuff you've already got, because yeah, normally you would push it to the limits. Like what I would do these days now is someone I'd consider myself professional now. I would push my gear to the limits, and I would know if I can't achieve a certain thing, if I've tried everything, and I'd know a good reason why I can't do that certain thing, and I know a good reason why I need that, then I might look into it. And even then, I'm still a little skeptical. Whereas I know when I was starting out, I definitely had more the perception of it's going to do something magical. I mean, like, if I just get an LA2A, it's going to be incredible.
Right.
If I just get the latest thing, the recreation of that old famous analog thing, it's going to be the best thing ever, you know? And it's, even with like, I mean, nice gear, nice analog stuff and everything too. Sometimes too, you don't know in these early stages, it might be really good, but it might not be right for you and your music.
Yeah.
Like you bought, it's more suited to a different style or a different thing.
And you know, like I said, I'm not ruling it out completely, because again, there are times when I find those things, you know, like I said before, I would just try to see for yourself, just like, can you understand what it's actually going to do? Or is this just going to be like a Band-Aid you're throwing on there?
Yeah.
Now, another thing too is if you're working with somebody, like a mentor, and they're going through your music and they're professional. I've done this before. I've recommended, it's like, hey, the thing that you're trying to do, this is what's required for that. Like whether, like again, like a 303 or something. And they go, oh, yeah, is that what that's a good example? Is that what that sound is? It's like, yeah, that's when you go and buy that sort of thing. It's like, I'm really trying to get this. Or it's like, I'm really like, when you really know what you want, that's when it's going to be easier to make. When you don't really know what you want and you're just sort of like, I think this is going to be the thing that does it. Just know it most likely isn't.
Yeah, well, this is all the more reason to come to someone with trusted ears and experience.
Yeah,
like us. Come to our school, talk to us, and say, hey, look, I'm trying to make this style of music. I'm trying to make drum and bass. I'm trying to make techno. I'm trying to make whatever. And this is what my stuff sounds like right now. Why doesn't it sound like my heroes? Why doesn't it sound like my favorite producers? We can tell you. We can tell you straight away and go. And we can tell you if you need to buy something or not. But the thing that's really going to move the needle for people that are, if you're unhappy with the way your music sounds, either musically or sonically, learning the skills makes 1,000 times more difference than the plugins, right? And I think maybe a good test for this too is if for the last, we have a lot of people that come to us that have been already writing for 5 to 10 years sometimes, and they're still not happy with their stuff. And they'll come to me and they'll be like, I've been doing this for ages, but I've still never been signed, or I've still, I'm not proud to release my stuff, or it doesn't sound the way I want it to be. But I bet so many of them have spent so much on plugins. I know so many of them have every year. As like, if I could have told them back at the start, just come and see us, and we can help you out and we can point you in the right direction with our experience. Don't make the mistakes that we made. That you don't need all that stuff, and you can just get the results by learn the skills. Yeah. Skills are so much more important.
And, you know, sometimes too, and this is kind of my last thought on that, it's like, you know, a lot of people that I work with, and I know the extreme one is the person that comes and says, you know, I want to get better at mastering. But I also have like some people that come to me and say, you know, I feel like my biggest issue is my drums. And I listen to their music, I go, yeah, the drums are a problem, but we can fix your drums in like one session. You know what I mean? It's like, what then? And so what do you think your problem is after that? They're like, well, I don't know. I thought it was just my drums. And it's like, well, no. And I've done that before. Like, let's fix your drums, and I'll explain it to you. Do one session, I'll fix your drums. And 9 times out of 10, what you think the issue is, it's something bigger in the idea, something more macro. And that's even more of a reason to be weary of trying to add in something that's just going to fix what you think is the problem. And yeah, one of my favorite things to do is when I sit down with someone, it's like, I always say, I'm like a doctor. And, you know, when you go into your doctor, you've already ChatGPT and WebMD'd what your thing is, and you tell your doctor, and your doctor's like, well, actually it's this, right? So that's what I always love being able to do is like, what do you think your problem is? Like, what do you think? And if I go, well, it's this, it's like, that's a symptom. The bigger problem is this. And they're like, oh, And then I start, muting the plugins, muting the things, change out a couple things, and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, it's sounding how it's supposed to sound. Which
So
is always so
true.
fun.
And it's so true and so understandable though too, because I'm shocked at how much misinformation there is out there in YouTube and courses and other stuff. The amount of times I've been teaching people for ages now. I mean, I've been doing this professionally for decades, but teaching as well for what, I don't know, 10, 12 years or something. And people are still coming to me with a lot of the same problems. And I'm like, where are you guys learning these bad techniques from? It's just floating around everywhere. And I'll show them the other way to do it. And they're like, oh my God, that's so much better. That's so much easier and it's faster. And I'm like,
Well, I always say it's like the blind leading the blind. And if you learn from somebody that so another thing is some people are really good at like teaching to people that again want some sort of something results that they're going to, so they become popular for kind of misinformation because it's allowing people to sort of just
it's entertaining.
It's entertaining and they can do something, but they realize they're just sort of like not moving past it. It's like, yeah, because you're not really doing, it's like, oh, but I watched this video and it said to do this. So it's like,
yeah. But yeah, well, that's what I forgot to say the last bit of what I was saying, but it's not their fault.
Right now, of course.
The point I wanted to make, because this misinformation is just everywhere. So if you're struggling with your music and it feels confusing and it's not working, yeah, it's probably not your fault. You're probably trying really hard, but you're getting told the wrong stuff.
Yeah, well, I always like, it's like the joke of like, back in my day, we walked to school uphill in the snow, but it's like, there was nothing online. There was manuals.
Yeah.
And if you were lucky, like apprenticeship, mentorship, like where you would work with other bigger artists. So in my earliest days, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but I'll quickly tell it. It's like, my favorite producer was Joey Beltram, Energy Flash. Did I ever tell you this story?
Not sure.
Well, so I got his records and I loved listening to his music. I didn't even know what Energy Flash was, by the way, but he's like a legend if you guys don't know who Joey Beltram is. I mean, Daft Punk said it was like one of their biggest inspirations was Joey Beltram. And I had his records, and on the back of his record, it said jbeltram1@aol.com. And I was like, oh, I just messaged him on AIM Messages. Like, hey, man. And I'm still friends with him to this day. It was just like 20 plus years ago. But he was like mentoring me on production. I would send him music, and my music was beyond terrible. And this is like a world-renowned like techno producer. And yeah, he was like my mentor. And then that led me to like working with some other really big artists at the time. And I just put out records with there. And it's like, I almost don't know if it's bad that I didn't have any information or better that all I had was just mentorship essentially from other people that knew what they were doing. And sometimes if you take in too much information from too many different places, it doesn't allow you to sort of figure these things out. Similarly, if you were going to like become an electrician or a carpenter, there's no better way to learn than like doing it with people that know exactly, that have been doing it for 20 years, that understand it. They understand all but never to do what you should always do versus someone that,
And importantly, the why behind it all.
The why, yeah.
The picture, the full system, because if you only know part of the system, it's going to throw off everything else. I think that's like when people get advice from one place and then advice from another place, they try to mix it all together.
And I think I think that why too. Also, it was a John who goes by Feed Me, right? And there was like an old interview where he was talking about his frustration with how much people would ask how he would make his bass sounds, but they never asked why he made them. And a lot of people struggle with finding their sound it's because you're trying to find out how to make that sound. You're not understanding why you're trying to make that. And the more you figure out your own why, all these questions start to get answered for you. You start to understand what you actually want to hear, which will also lead to what plugins you probably end up wanting as well, because you understand the why.
Yes. That's a great way to bring it full circle. Yeah, exactly. If you follow these kind of steps, if you get the advice, if you develop your system, if you find your why, you will clearly know what plugins you do and don't need, and it's probably not going to be many.
Right. And sorry, last thing I'll even say with this why too, right? Really quick is about 5 years ago, I was sort of doing like a cleansing of the brain and writing out, what I wanted in life, not like necessarily manifesting, but like I wanted to write it all out. And I did this program online and I was like, okay, I know what I want. I want this and I want this and da, da, da. And by the time I was done writing this thing, and it actually took like 2 weeks to write, the thing that I started with that I thought I wanted, I realized halfway through, I don't want that. And the more I started thinking it through about why and this, the thing I ended up wanting was something completely different. Do you know what I mean? It's the same with music. You may like go and see and be inspired by somebody play. You're like, I want to be that guy. I want to make that music. And you don't realize until you like really start to explore into yourself of like why you're actually making it. You might be making the wrong genre of what you're trying to make. You might be wanting, and that's why it's not clicking.
Yep. That's so true, man. It's what they say. Most people spend more time planning their vacation than planning their life. And I think the same thing applies to music as well, too.
Yeah.
Often I'll hear people come in and play me their stuff and I'll go, yeah, but you got some reference tracks for me too. Like, what are you aiming for? Play me those. I'm like, these are different. Don't you want it to sound more like that? I'm like, okay, well, you might be turning up to the studio every day, working hard, but it's not turning out the way you want it. Let's fix that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Any more on that point?
I think we nailed it.
I think we nailed it too. Yeah. Hopefully that was good.
If anyone's got questions about it or anything, drop them in the comments down below if you're on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, head over to YouTube and follow us there. And you can check out the podcast there as well too. But yeah, I think the big message was be careful about Black Friday's fun. Definitely great deals out there for sure. But yeah, be careful with your purchases, because if your end goal, if your why that you're buying plugins is because you want to make better music, if your why is because you want it to sound sonically better, to be musically better, to be attract more fans, to maybe build it into a career, or just to be proud of the music you make, the answer might not be plugins. The answer might be coming to us and coming and get some help. If you're not sure, come and drop us a message and we can talk all about it. We do all sorts of courses and mentoring and everything over at basskleph.com. But we'd be happy to share our years of experience so you don't have to make the mistakes that we did.
Absolutely.
John, great to have you on the show as always.
Good to be back, and we'll be back again soon.
Let's do it again soon, man. All right, take care.